It's really stunning, the rhetoric we're hearing right now. I guess, best case scenario, the Democrats have a really bad case of political amnesia. Serious case of it, really, because they seem to have totally forgotten, completely forgotten. They were just refusing to admit that they were the ones who originally created this whole illegitimate president idea. Remember? I remember. I remember thinking at the time it was totally outrageous. And now they're like, oh, we would never do such a thing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the program. Great to have you here. I am Trish. This is the Trish Regan Show. Portions of today's program are brought to you by Legacy Precious Metals. There's never been a better time to invest in precious metals than now. So go to legacypminvestments.com for more. legacypminvestments.com. All right, this rhetoric is really quite something. But first of all, let me start with what Paul Krugman, that noted economist. Can I even call him that? Economist from Princeton. He's got a job at Princeton. He's got a job at the New York Times. Anyway, he penned a column this week saying, and I quote, he'll be the first, he's referring to Biden, modern U.S. president trying to govern in the face of an opposition that refuses to accept his legitimacy. This is Mr. Krugman there. He goes on and says, and no, Democrats never said that Donald Trump was illegitimate, just that he was incompetent and dangerous. This seems to be a new talking point. Over the weekend, Deval Patrick, who's the former Democratic governor of Massachusetts, said something quite similar. I quote, he said, I don't think there was any Democrat calling the election itself illegitimate because the outcome was surprising or disappointing to Democrats. Whoa! Do I need to remind them? Do we need to remind them exactly what Hillary Clinton was saying in the days and years following her defeat? We're going to get to that in a second. But in light of all this chaos in the world right now, all the more reason why you need to be thinking very hard about your investments, about your future, about all the inflation we've got in our economy. And it's why I encourage everyone to consider having precious metals, specifically for me anyway, it's gold, in one's portfolio. The team I trust more than any other team to help you navigate this space is Legacy Precious Metals. LegacyPMInvestments.com is their website. You can get a free investing guide there at LegacyPMInvestments.com. So I encourage you to check that out or call them at 1-866-589-0560, 1-866-589-0560. Anyway, the chaos that we're seeing right now all began back in 2016 when Hillary Clinton went on to CBS News and doubted the integrity of the election. I mean, that was one of the themes we kept hearing over and over and over again. She said, and let me quote here, he knows he's an illegitimate president. I believe, she went on, he understands that many varying tactics they used, from voter suppression and voter purging to hacking to the false stories. He knows that there were just a bunch of different reasons why the election turned out like it did. So she called him an illegitimate president, and it wasn't just her. I mean, you had the whole group of them, right? Including, by the way, a former president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, saying the same stuff. In fact, in June 2019, the former president said that in his view, Donald Trump lost the 2016 election and was put in office by the Russians. I will quote, he said, this is while he was on a panel in Virginia, I think a full investigation would show that Trump didn't actually win in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered on his behalf. Wow. I mean, that's pretty wild. I mean, you want to talk about sowing some seeds of doubt in democracy itself. This is exactly what they were doing. He went on when he was asked, well, then do you think Trump is illegitimate? He said, based on what I just said, which I can't retract, and got a big laugh. I mean, so for Paul Krugman or Deval Patrick or anyone right now to try and suggest that none of them ever said this stuff, I mean, it's insulting. It's beyond insulting. I know they want to rewrite history, but guys, like, there's tape, okay? There's plenty of tape. There are plenty of quotes, and the damage was done, significant damage, because 62% of Democrats didn't and still do not believe that Donald Trump won the 2016 election. 61%, meanwhile, of Republicans now, they don't believe the outcome of the 2020 election. So you see what's happened. You see how you have two sides that are so torn and so divided in a very unproductive way. And it all goes back to Hillary Clinton and what she was saying. Now, look, You can say, look, the Russians, they had a hand in these bot accounts, etc. I'm sorry, but ultimately what it came down to was the delivery of a poor message, especially on the economic front from her, and kind of that people just didn't like her, right? I mean, I think that's so much of what politics is. Unfortunately, I like to believe it's all policy, and policy does matter, but a lot of it comes down to likability. You could also say that in 2020, a lot of people voted for Biden and against Trump because it was a vote against Trump. Again, not caring about the policy. And you see the consequence of that right now with so much inflation in our economy. And yet Joe Biden's out there giving a speech saying, hey, isn't this economy great? People are making more money than ever. No, not when adjusted for inflation. They're absolutely not. And the unemployment rate is strangely low, but unfortunately, I have a feeling that's because a lot of people have opted out of the workforce. You look at the productivity, participation rate. Our productivity is not hot, by the way, but you look at the labor participation rate and you're not seeing enough people that want to be in this workforce. And that comes with consequences. It's one of the things that my friends over at the Association for Mature American Citizens are working so hard to make sure we're all aware of, because they care so much about policy. They want to make sure that you're protected against all this inflation in the future. They want to make sure that the right policies are in place to help protect your economic freedom, all your freedoms for that matter, because they're all, in my estimation, really on the line. So I encourage you to check them out. You can join with 2.4, think about that, 2.4 million like-minded Americans there at AMAC. It's at amac.us/Regan, Regan, my last name, amac.us/Regan. You can join or renew today, just $16 a year, and you're going to have an impact. You have a voice then, because it's a lot of people strong that are caring about some really important things right now. Anyway, you've got these two sides that are extremely divided and no one's focused on the issues. And so what it has really come to is the Democrats are saying, okay, we have to win at all costs. And that's why you saw that speech the other night from Joe Biden. That's what that's about. They want to ensure that the other side effectively gets annihilated. There's no room for anything other, frankly, than being a Democrat. Because Clinton said, and I'm going to quote from what she said quite recently in the Financial Times, we are standing on the precipice of losing our democracy, and everything that everyone else cares about then goes out the window. Look, she said, the most important thing is to win the next election. The alternative is so frightening that whatever does not help you win should not be a priority. So it's about winning, 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 and winning no matter what. Do not forget, this is the same woman that said ahead of the election, this is just, it's so bad. She said in August of 2020, I'll never forget it, that Democrat presidential nominee Joe Biden should not concede the upcoming election, quote, under any circumstances, because, quote, this is going to drag out. And eventually, I do believe he will win if we don't give an inch and if we are as focused and relentless as the other side is. So that's what it's all about. Whoever can dig in their heels the most, whoever can be most focused and just relentless, whoever wins that fight is the one that actually wins. I mean, then you're actually talking about really destroying democracy in the process. So this is a sad time in this country. It's a sad time in America. I think the market is reflecting this, in addition to the bad economic news, of which we will get more as the Federal Reserve moves more aggressively on rates to hike them because of all the stupidity that's happened over the last couple of years. Anyway, great to have you here. As always, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple iTunes or on Omni or on Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, Spotify as well. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you here tomorrow.